Welcome back. Rights of people with disabilities is what we talk about on this segment. Of course, BBC Media Action did produce this together with us again last week. This is also a part of the project or disability project that we're working on. It is basically this time where we try to draw attention to the plight of a person with disability, and of course they spoke right from their own mouth. Some foundations have also put together events to sensitize students. Inclusive education was also one of the topics which we discussed last week, taking a look at some of these issues and exactly what needs to be done. SDG goal number 4, quality education for all persons. But for somebody who is on a wheelchair, for a person who is a person with disability who is using a wheelchair, or for a person with disability who cannot see, the blind or the deaf or the mute, quality education does mean that they have access to places, access to schools, access to teachers who can tutor them and teach them, not just like Lukman put it last week, not just being in the same school, but also being able to have activities together. Some of this unique set of people came up with what they need. Let's listen to what they need, and of course we're back here to talk about it.
I also want to
fly, I'm destined to fly. I'm bound to reign, to take over the world, but the pressure weighs me down. The pressure makes me frown. My time is here, I can feel it in the air. I'm no longer bound, I am off the ground. I'm destined to fly, fly,
I want all people with disability who are still at home, who have not educated in schools. I want them to be educated. I want government to educate them, to put them in little schools. So that's what I want. For those children that are disabled that are at home, I want them to be more educated.
I want to add that not only giving us more schools, but also making the schools accessible, because accessibility is key. When the school environment is accessible, then it will help to include the child to the school, because what the parents or what the caregiver will first of all look at is accessibility, the way the ramp, or the way the wheelchair will pass, or maybe how the school is accessible to the child living with disability. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ofem Joshua. I'm the senior prefect of St. Joseph Secondary School. Not be discriminated at all. We should be encouraging the public to do better. Like, for example, schools should try and encourage them to come to their schools. Don't make them feel like they are not wanted in the society, because they are giving them low self-esteem and discouraging them. So I would like to when I go home today, I'll share the flyers around my street so that people can know that this program that we did today in our school is encouraging us.
The rights of people with disability, quite a number of us do assume that they do not have reasons to be in the same classroom as others. Kemi, you were just saying that how do you deal with inclusive education for someone who is deaf?
Okay, like when we were saying the other time, I was actually saying that I was asking you that it doesn't mean that you will be in separate classes, and which you answered and said that being in the same classes is the way to go, which is actually true. And I think we then probably have someone who is good with the sign language.
There are actually sign language teachers.
Yes, but they are not. I don't think they are.
There are very many. That's the thing. That's the
You can
thing.
imagine.
There are really very many. If you look around, you find out that they are there. But this idea of not having inclusive education has encouraged a lot of parents over time to keep their children who have disabilities at home. Now, people with disabilities have access, should have access
The
to
same
education,
true.
quality education. Teachers. So imagine that we're in a classroom together, Kemi, and there is somebody with disability, a person with disability with us who is deaf, and a teacher is teaching, speaking, and there is a sign language teacher speaking in signs. The child who has a disability in the ear, who is hearing impaired, or who is speech impaired, gets to understand what the teacher is saying because of the sign language.
True, but first and foremost, you know, the student in question must actually understand the language.
And that's the thing. That's why we encourage parents not to keep children with disabilities at home.
At home. So I
So that
think
they can
for that
communicate.
inclusion to be properly done, you have to make sure. I know someone who is who is mute, sorry. So this person, someone who is so close to me, and what happened at the end of the day, there is a school for him where he can actually learn the sign language, because if the student does not actually understand the sign language, there is no way there will be an inclusion whereby the student will be able to understand what the sign language teacher is talking about when he or she does not really understand the sign language. You understand? So it's like someone, you know, some people who are not some are not even born that way. Imagine, for instance, someone who has been hearing all his life, and then he just got to a point in his life he became deaf, you know. Somebody like that is not aware about the sign language.
We have a video of a woman like that who became deaf and speech impaired, both of them in our 20s. I will have that video if my director can put it up there. There's a woman in that video as well. She was talking about her right to proper health care. Now she goes to a hospital. She's not able to communicate with anybody in the hospital, even though she needs health care, because nobody speaks sign language amongst the nurses. So she gets to the hospital and she's doing and nobody's talking to her. Nobody understands what she's talking about. Let's listen to these people with disability have rights too, and they are talking about their rights. Let's listen and we'll be back to round off.
My name is